Alan Kruger, the chairman of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. And he gave a talk about a year ago where he suggested that there actually is a relationship between income inequality and mobility, that the more income inequality you have, the less mobility you have, or another way of putting it is that the more income inequality you have, the more kind of heritability is what I call it in my book, heritability of income, meaning you end up with the same, occupying the same position in the income distribution that your parents did throughout your lifetime. This is not definitive. The work on this is somewhat tentative, but it certainly is logical to suspect that income inequality would inhibit mobility, because as Isabel Sawhill at the Brookings Institution has said, and I think the president has even repeated the line, as the rungs of the ladder grow farther apart, the ladder gets harder to climb. A big part of this story is the death of labor unions. It's, I think, a bigger part of the broad-based inequality story, but I want to include it here because I think it's also a significant part of the 1% versus the 99% story. I was mentioning earlier that the portion of GDP dedicated to labor has shrunk relative to the portion dedicated to capital. Well, here's a big, obvious explanation why. Union density has been shrinking since the early 1950s. It peaked in 1954 at about 40% today. It's at 7%. That's in the private sector. But most of us work in the private sector. 7% of the private sector workforce is the same level as it was in 1933. A sentence I wrote in my book, which I could have written at several points, particularly with respect to financial regulation, is it's as if the New Deal never happened. That's certainly true with respect to the condition of unions today. And this is a part of my book that I'm finding in going around talking to people is hardest for audiences to get interested in. And what I tend to say is, look, if you're not interested in trying to figure out a way to save labor, then you shouldn't be interested in income inequality. Take up chess or something, because you're not going to fix this problem unless you can solve this problem. The other trend we have seen in recent years is the rise of the capital economy, which is what this entire conference is about. We've seen income growth. The two drivers of income growth for top corporate executives has soared out of control due to stock option compensation that's often unrelated to company performance. And not to beat up too much on Bill Clinton, but he has to sort of take it on the chin for that one too, because he, with the best of intentions, supported something that I'm sure I would have supported at the time myself, probably did, I don't remember, which was he wanted to limit the deductibility of CEO pay at a ceiling of $1 million. And as Nell Minow, a kind of corporate watchdog, said to me, two things happened. First, everybody got a raise to $1 million. And the second thing that happened was that everybody started getting paid in stock options, which for a long time were off the books because corporations took the preposterous position that they couldn't value them at all, since they didn't know what they were ultimately going to be worth. And since they weren't on the books, of course, that meant that they were granted with impunity. And so that's when things